Hey guys, my name is Shylo Preston and I'm a kitchen and bath designer. I've been designing luxury kitchens and baths for 26 years. I've done $5,000 refreshes all the way up to $500,000 kitchen remodels. I've worked with hundreds of clients. I've been on hundreds, if not thousands, of job sites and worked with hundreds of different contractors. I've seen exquisitely fine details of installation, and I've also seen the just okay and the downright ugly, and I know the difference. I've been wanting to start this vlog for some time now, but I was struggling with trying to answer the question of who did I want to speak to? Did I want to speak to homeowners and give them inspiration and design tips and tips to make their projects more successful? Or did I want to reach out to young designers like I used to be and share some of my experience that would make them more successful? I heard once that the person you're best qualified to coach is who you used to be. And so that was on my mind. I feel like I'm going to have some really helpful information, no matter who you are or why you're listening. If you find the information useful, if you're intrigued and you want to hear more, I hope that you'll stay tuned. I hope that you'll follow along with me, and especially if you would, go ahead and put in the comments what kind of topics you'd love for me to talk about. After 26 years in the industry, selling everything from mid-range to luxury, all the different brands, you name it, I've probably worked with them at some point, and all the different challenges that can come up on the construction site, all the different emotional things that can happen with a client, especially those who maybe don't do remodels all the time. Maybe the remodel they're doing with you is the one and only time they're going to remodel, and they've been saving up for it for their whole lives, and so there's a ton of emotional investment. Maybe there's even some fear because of the amount of money that they're investing into it. Trust me, if it happens in the remodeling industry, I've probably experienced. Like I said, I've worked with lots of different contractors. I've worked with design build and independent contractors, and I've also worked on the manufacturer side as a rep and been able to visit markets all over the country and see how different things are done. So I'm really excited to be able to share some of those years of experience and make the remodeling experience that much more successful, that much more enjoyable, and have an even greater, better outcome for those who are doing this. So if you're listening, like I said, I know everyone says this, and I never thought I'd be the one saying this, but you could really help me out by hitting that like button and subscribe, and especially if you were to go that extra mile and comment about topics that you're interested in, that would be awesome. Okay, so one of my pet peeves when I watch a YouTube video is when someone rambles like this and doesn't get to the point. So I'm gonna really try to get to the point. When I was a younger designer, I was just a sponge. I was so intimidated. Everything was so new. Really and truly, if I was on a job site for a project that I designed, and especially if I had ordered all the materials, I was just happy if they all showed up and fit. To me, at that stage of my design career, that was a win. But gradually, as I began to go on and I began to get more and more projects under my belt and work on different and more complex projects, I started to observe more and notice more. And I remember there came a point where, I don't know, like you start to see things, and even though I would never ever intentionally leave a defective or a problem detail with a client, I will say when I was younger, sometimes I would spot something. Maybe it was a little bit of a damage on a cabinet, or maybe it was a problem with some grout on the tile. Maybe it was the way some lighting was installed. I would look at it, and if the homeowner hadn't said anything and no one seemed to have noticed, and I knew that the repair or to fix it or to make it right was going to cost major time delays and be very expensive, I will admit in the early years I was intimidated to say anything because I didn't want to be the one that completely shut the job down and cost a lot of money and time. And there's this temptation to not rock the boat. And back in 2010, I had the honor of joining a really prestigious design firm in the design district in Dallas. We did some beautiful projects. That's where I started to do kitchen remodels that were in excess of $250,000, did a few projects that were over $500,000. And I had the opportunity to work with clients who got to work with materials and complex installations and a little bit more custom details where the finer details really mattered. And some of these clients were spending major dollars on these materials. And I worked with a project manager. To this day, he remains my favorite project manager. He was meticulous. I wrote down, because I didn't want to forget to say this, that he understood the details of how to make any installation look like $1 million. He had a no compromise attitude about a quality installation right down to the smallest detail. Sometimes it was so aggravating because I would look at it and to me, in my mind, it really truly did look good. I would even say good enough, but even good. And it wasn't good enough for him, and he wanted to redo it. And I really trusted him. I trusted him that he had a good eye, he had good ideas. And so I had the pleasure of working with him for nearly 10 years. So I got to see a lot. And I remember as I was growing as a designer and I was getting more confidence and I was starting to really identify the materials and the details and the things I wanted to see on my projects, I remember asking him one day, at what point do I say something? I'm afraid to shut the job down. I'm afraid to cost, whether it's the GC or the design firm or the client, I'm afraid to cost them a lot of money in having to redo something. At what point do I say something? And I remember he just looked at me and he said, if you don't say something, who should? And he said, if you don't say something and down the line someone else notices it and you never said anything, he said, what does that look like? And all of a sudden it just kind of leveled everything out in my mind. The client hires me because they trust me. The client hires me because they know that I know what it should look like and what the details should be. And so if I'm not stopping things, if I'm not questioning, if I'm not asking, if I'm not pointing it out, if I'm not raising concerns, no matter what the cost, no matter what the time delay is, then who's going to? I remember working with this project manager. We were on a job and it was a beautiful kitchen remodel and with a favorite client. And I remember we were standing there and they had just finished, it was a custom Bazaza glass mosaic backsplash, about 11 feet wide by 5 feet high. And the reason it was custom is because we hand selected with the clients the colors and we created a graduated coloring from the ceiling down to the countertops. So it took weeks to get, it was very, very expensive. And we had a new tile installer group on this job. And so as I was sitting there working and watching the installation, I began to have some concerns. And when they finished the tile installation, for those who are in the industry, back in the day, now this was years ago, this isn't as popular of an installation anymore, and it was a modern kitchen, but it was the little 1x1 glass. So we had the gradiated color, we had the 1x1 glass on a mesh sheet, and once it was installed and grouted, I was looking at it and it wasn't bad. The client didn't say anything. Nobody else was saying anything, but we were looking at it and my project manager came over and without really having to talk, with those 12 by 12 mesh backs, one of the issues that you can run into really easily, unless you have a really good installer, is it's not immediately apparent, but if you have a good eye and you're looking for it, sometimes if those mesh sheets aren't perfectly straight and perfectly aligned, then you can begin to spot where one sheet ends and another begins. Now, I've seen plenty of installations where that was clearly the case, and the people loved it and everybody was happy and nobody saw anything wrong with it, but there's a point where that's not acceptable. So I remember my project manager was standing there and I was looking at him and it felt like he read my mind. So we stepped outside and I said, "This isn't good. I'm not happy with this." And he said, I was hoping you would say that." And our firm, it was a design build firm doing this kitchen, paid to rip out the entire installation, order the materials again, and reinstall it. And I'm telling you, that cost thousands of dollars to do that. But we were committed to it being right. And that client, who I adored and I wanted it to be right for them, ended up being so pleased that we did that I think we got 2 or 3 or more great referrals from them and ended up doing more projects because of them. Now, would I have preferred that we didn't have to do that and that it had gone perfectly the first time? Absolutely. Did it hurt financially to have to redo that? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, when it was all said and done, I had great pride in the fact that we had done it and that it was perfect when it was done and the client was happy. So I just want to give a shout out to young designers who are just starting out and you're seeing things in the field and you're not sure whether to say something. You're not sure whether to trust your gut. Is it just me? Should I say something? Is everyone going to get mad at me? Excuse my language, but am I going to piss people off if I say something? And the truth of the matter is, trust your gut, because you know the experience that you want to leave your client with. And if you're not happy with something, there's always a time and a place to bring it up, but say it, bring it up, be confident, trust your gut. One thing that I will add to that, and I think this is an important point, is as designers, we can want the Taj Mahal for our clients. We can want everything to be perfect, but the truth of the matter is all of us are limited by our budget, our space, our timeline. So as a designer, I can't control the quality of the product. For example, in cabinetry, for example, you have, now definitely I 100% will take factory finished custom cabinetry or factory finished cabinetry over local built cabinets any day. That's just my experience. I've seen them. I've seen a lot of them, like dozens of different cabinet lines. I've been on job sites where local built was done. Local built, what I mean by local built is they build it in a shop, they bring it, and then they spray it and finish it in place. And most often, the finish that they're putting on those cabinets is no different than the paint they're putting on your walls and your trim. So it's gonna wear off. It's gonna craze and spot and wear off, and it's gonna be awful. So anyway, I'll take a factory finished cabinet any day, but there are different levels of quality for factory finished cabinetry. There's stock cabinets, which is appropriate for certain situations. I'll tell you, I don't know, maybe a little tongue-in-cheek, but maybe just very honestly and bluntly, most stock cabinets probably aren't worth much more than the box that they came in, but they're appropriate for certain situations. They're not going to hold up very long. You're going to have problems with drawer glides and finish pretty quickly, and that's what a lot of builders think of when they think of factory built cabinetry. They're thinking of that low-end stock line, which I personally wouldn't use unless I absolutely had to and it was appropriate for the project. Then you go up to semi-custom, and those kind of range, there's a whole range of quality there. How the trick for new designers and homeowners is a lot of the differentiation in quality is in the things you can't see. So a quality cabinet right out of the box and a stock cabinet right out of the box don't look much different, just surface wise. It's when you get into the construction details and what they were used and how the joinery was done and how they're blocked and what drawer glides and all that kind of stuff that the differentiation starts to really reveal itself. And that's what's going to make the difference in how well the cabinet lasts. And then you get into the more luxury market. You have lines like Christopher Peacock, Duval, Rutt, Woodmode, where they are considered more of a luxury brand. They're built like brick houses. I'm not going to say what my mom would used to say when I was growing up. I'll just say brick houses. They are solid. They're built really, really well. So you're going to choose, as a designer, you're going to choose the appropriate product for your project. I was in a training many, many moons ago. It was actually an Ultracraft dealer training in South Carolina. And they had a keynote speaker, and he made a great point. He was talking about price and the appropriateness of price for a project. And he used this example. He said, there's no right or wrong price. There's no better or not as good price. He said, if I am at the bank and I just need to sign something quickly and I need a pen, he said, then I can't remember how much he said at the time. I'm sure it's not the same anymore, but I think he said a 19-cent Bic pen would be just fine for the task. But he said, alternatively, if my niece was graduating from university and I was looking for a beautiful, and she was going to start a new law career or something, and I was looking for a graduation gift for her, then that 19-cent Bic pen is no longer appropriate, and I'm going to look for something a little more luxurious, a little more expensive, and that's appropriate for that situation. And it's the same thing. The only right or wrong answer for a product is what's right for that project. I will say there are certain products I won't specify, only because I know they're of such low quality that they will break, they will have warranty issues, they will wear down, and ultimately the client is going to be disappointed in them. But outside of that, if somebody needs to get a project done and they need to get it done for a certain budget, then there's a lot of product opportunities in there. But my whole point in saying that, just to kind of bring this right back around, as you're finding your voice and as you're building your confidence and as you're speaking up, it's important that you and the homeowner understand that you can't control or change the level of quality of the product at the price point that you chose, if that makes sense. I can't take a stock Aristocraft cabinet and have the same expectations for it as I would a custom Woodmode product. The expectations have to be different. And so it's important that you know that. It's also important that you recognize when something is just a personal preference and when something was actually done inadequately or wrong. And it's important to know the difference. It may be different than what you envisioned, but is it good? Is it pretty? Is it quality? That may be the time when you let it go. If it's wrong, it doesn't look good, it doesn't meet your expectations, or it's damaged, that's the time to find your voice and speak up. So if you're a young designer out there, I hope that you'll stay tuned. I hope that you'll be inspired. And again, good luck to you, all the success in the world, and we'll talk to you soon.